Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats at chess.com, continuing my video series on the correspondence team match played between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. This was played on board 57. Our man is jlconn. He's playing the Great Don. Rating advantage 1920 to about 1812. Hey, the Great Don, you were in my group once. Why did you leave? Come on back. Anyway, I'm gonna go through this game. I have the Dutch defense, and it seems to stay pretty even for a long time, but it suddenly turns in black's favor, and it's not that easy to see. So I think it's pretty well played by both sides. Both sides right now are just developing their pieces. Black is moving a lot of pawns, but that happens in the Dutch. White's moving a lot of pawns too. Black moves at least 4 pawns when he's setting up a stone wall. And when you set up the stone wall, you're leaving yourself with a bad light squared bishop. He's planning to put it on b7 and support the e4 square. As we will see, by playing the stone wall, you give up the e5 square, and it's definitely a game. It's a fight, and both sides are still developing pieces. And honestly, there's not much going on here. The position is closed up, so the bishops are rather ineffective. The bishops don't have much scope here. See, these bishops aren't really going anywhere. Same with this guy. Where's he going? Okay, where's this one going? The knights are kind of limited too, in that they have the king 5 squares in English descriptive. White has the hole on e5, which is backed up by another knight, but then as long as this knight's on f3, black can access e4, and white would have to move this knight and then kick him out. Let's just see how it progresses. Black does take that square. White gets on the open file. And normally in a Dutch, black is playing for some kind of a kingside attack, and he doesn't in the stonewall. He doesn't try it this game. It's often to see this queen go to e8 and h4, but we never saw it. And now white opts to trade off a minor piece and bring his knight in with tempo. And this seems to be thematic with the idea that white's going to say, tell you what, get out of there. Get out of my king 4 square, e4. I'm going to keep my king 5 square knight, and if you want to get rid of it, you have to get rid of your better looking bishop. So this is the better looking bishop for black, because so many of black's pawns are on light squares. And if black does trade it off, then his light squared bishop may not be all that effective. But anyway, he doesn't opt for f3 at this or any other time. Instead, white plays a4, and maybe I don't know, this bishop's not going to a3. Maybe he didn't like the fact that pawn was under attack. Let's see, how long? Yeah, that's why he's doing it. He sees that it's under attack and he's moving it. But at the same time, it weakens the b4 square. But from the second point of view, it gives black a new break to try. And we'll see that in a moment. And, objectively, the game is still even. There's not a whole lot going on here. But black starts to craft some play. And here, black plays bishop a6, pinning the white pawn on c4. And it's at this point that white lets his game start to fall apart. And again, it's not all that obvious exactly how it happens, but we will see here in a few moves how the white game collapses. What's better for white here? Well, first off, let's look at what's black trying to do. Well, like I say, he's pinned this pawn, and suddenly, not only is the queen on that diagonal, the rook's on the diagonal. So white starts thinking about getting him off. But it's kind of like out of the frying pan and into the fire situation. Reasonable moves for white are to bring the knight back to d3. This frees the pawn from a pin, although if it is exchanged, the knight would be under a pin. But there's really no way for black to exploit that. Another way is to just kick this knight out, and I tend to think the game would be about even. But as I was saying, out of the frying pan into the fire, white gets it off that diagonal, but suddenly puts it on the same file as a black rook. And all of a sudden, black gets a little counterplay here. Black's playing the first pawn break with b5 and is generating threats against c4. And White ends up dropping a pawn here. And we'll see. But really, there was no really good move for White. I was kind of playing with this. All the variations don't seem to help. For instance, c5 is met by bishop takes, pawn takes, and then if anything, Black can take here, uncovering an attack on the rook and getting ready to take this pawn, and Black's going to go up 2 pawns. And c5 remains under duress. So it's not all that easy for White to find his best way here. Black is getting the advantage after b5, but he takes the rook off the diagonal, and this comes at the price of a pawn. And here it comes. And now suddenly Black is a pawn up and is threatening to play bishop b3, and looks like that probably will win another pawn. So now White opts to chase that knight out, and it goes to the alternative is to put it on g5, but here it's menacing the a4 square a little more. It's pressuring b3. It's threatening to go to d3. White doesn't really have any good options, so he opts to pin it against the queen, but then Black just breaks that, brings the queen over. Now suddenly the queen's on the same diagonal as the White king, and White opts to give up the bishop pair he's acquired, and in turn go pin this bishop on c4. So the bishop can't move, and it looks like White's doing reasonable here, but Black keeps finding good moves. Just plays rook b4, defending the bishop. Point being, if bishop takes, the rook can take, and pressure on the queen. Black will remain up a pawn and probably winning another one. So White repins the bishop. With the queen was doing the job, the bishop couldn't move, but now the rook remains keeping this bishop pinned. But Black says, go ahead, take it. I've got enough defenders on c4, you can't do a thing. And now comes a quick exchange here, but White sees that if he takes the rook, then here comes a discovery on the queen, and this pawn is now passed, so is this one, but it's not as important. And Black has pretty much a clear path here with this queen, and he can escort this pawn up pretty quick, probably even get a rook on the 7th rank. So it's just not looking good for White. I mean, yeah, not looking good for White at all. So after rook takes c4, White opts for queen c2, and Black just trades. And Black's a pawn up, but has a really strong position. The only pure open file is the B file, and Black controls it. And he's got a pass pawn, and he gets it running. And see, it's up to all of a sudden it's up to the 4th rank, and Black's still in possession of that open file. And now he takes command of it. White defends it, but now the queen has a free path in, and threatening to trade queens or take the pawn on a4. So White doesn't want a queen trade, backs his queen up and guards the pawn, but now this queen is cornered. It's not doing White much good at all. And since Black has control of the file, just keep the pressure up, threaten to park the queen on d3 and send the rook into play, or threaten to bring the rook into b4. This is not an enviable position for White, so he opts to overprotect a2, but now his heavy pieces are off to the side of the board, and Black is just crushing. And now he opens up the position, which is a mistake, because the open position is going to favor Black. Now queen f3 check is threatened, as well as even e3 check, but queen f3 check looks pretty deadly. White runs for the hills with his king, but Black just centralizes the queen and getting ready to play either c3 or e3 or even even rook b3. Black's just got his choice here, and with these pieces cornered, White just can't generate any play. So he tries. He gets the newly opened f file, but he can't get his queen to coordinate along the same file. Well, he could put the queen on f1, but Black just trades it and wins the rook ending very easily. And now offer a queen trade and threaten a discovered check. And if Black takes, let's see, maybe that's his only hope. We'll come back to that, because after queen e2, e3 discovered check, White interposed and then resigned without waiting for the obvious rook b2, and with this rook pinned, Black is going to not only win the queen, he's going to get a new queen here real soon. So let's see if White had any hope at all with exchanging queens. I don't think he did, because now suddenly Black gets three connected pass pawns in the center. But White has a monster here that Black needs to deal with. But Black can deal with that well enough. I'm sure there's a lot of ways to do it. One is to play e3. Well, no, you can't do that. There's a trick. e2. Now, if you take the rook, you get mated. See, so maybe this gives White some hope, but maybe Black would blunder. So e3 is a mistake. However, the rook can just safely drop back, and White really can't do anything here. This pawn is doomed, and if rook c2, Black just plays d4, and those center pawns are just too strong. Doesn't even have to play d4. Rook b2 will do the job. That forces immediate resignation. But there was a chance maybe for a trick. If you're gonna play on in a lost game, try a trick. Okay. So for instance, take, and push. Who knows? Maybe White will play, or Black will play this move, figuring that after the rook moves, we just come behind this pawn and it's curtains. But as I just showed you, there was a little trick here. e7, and there's two threats: rook mate and promote to a queen mate. And well, let's see, maybe it's not quite lost. I guess I was wrong. Let's see, rook b8. Yeah, well, at least White got to threaten checkmate, huh? And he certainly didn't get to make any threats the way it turned out, did he? Let's see. Well, there was one other way to do this. Let's see. Instead of playing queen e2, queen a2, this is a possibility. But this threatens a mate. But just exchange queens, and this has to be winning for Black. Just take this pawn and put the rook behind the pawn, and the outside pass pawn will win for Black. If White sends his king over, eventually he's going to have to try to get this king to blockade that pawn, and that's easier said than done. As a matter of fact, it's probably impossible. If White could get his king to c2, it frees his rook, but yeah, White needs to play rook c2 right here, period. Otherwise, that pawn's going to c2, and in the moment White moves the rook, even if he gives up a pawn by queening, the outside pawn will do it. But this is clearly in Black's favor. Matter of fact, I think he can just advance this pawn right up the board, and the White king is too slow. So let's see. Well, yeah, this is over. So you can't take the pawn on a2, but you have to. So it was a routine win. Okay, well played, jlconn. Let's reset the board, flip it, enter the other game. And what move will it start supposed to start at the beginning. We never know until we click. Hey, look at that. Move 20. Move 19. Well, mercy. How does it pick that move? I don't know. Okay. So, London system, pretty quiet, equal opening. Not much is going on here at all. Black has control of the center, is threatening a fork, but white counters with playing e4. And I think, again, this game is relatively even. And white does the peculiar thing and castles queenside. This entails some risk. It's not, even though white has the open H file, it's not exactly clear how white's going to attack along that yet, unless he starts his pawn storm. And it seems to put, to some degree, the white king at risk and gives black a lot of chances to try for play. And black does try. He does try to create some counterplay against the white king, but he's going to make a critical error here in a little bit, as we will see. But it's certainly an interesting choice to castle long. Now he breaks the pin, and now white plays this kind of a b4, kind of has to, but you can see here the white king is starting to get exposed, even looks more exposed than the black king. See, it just seems kind of risky. Maybe black has some ideas of bishop e6 and rook a2. Try to generate something with b6. You know, black does try these things, but white comes out on top because black makes a serious error here in just a couple of moves. We'll come back to this position and discuss it further. Okay, f4. Now the only move for black to play is rook h5. You've got to neutralize the pressure on the h file, and if rook takes, let's see, how do you take back? With the knight or the bishop? If you take with the bishop, here comes e5, and you're going to drop this pawn. But, you know, this knight could get dangerous. The alternative is to take back with the knight. Let's see. This is assuming white trades on h5. Okay. Now you can menace h7, but can white get at this knight? You know, it's not clear exactly if he can do that. You know, maybe black can play h6, and we have a game whose outcome is yet to be determined. Maybe again black can play for bishop e6 and rook a2. White probably has some resources, but instead what happens is he doesn't play rook h5. He plays rook e6, and suddenly black's in serious trouble, and he falls apart quickly. He tries to get his attack going. You know, let's take this. Let's threaten to put the knight here or here. You know, it looks like a reasonable move, but white just has a fine continuation here. He doesn't want to play bishop takes h7 check. Instead, he wants to take there with the queen. So he goes and pins the knight, and the knight moves with tempo, but suddenly black is losing. Queen takes check, forced. Queen check, king up, and white picks up a rook. And although black has some counterplay here, white finds a lot of threats. White just drops his rook on the back rank, and suddenly queen d8 mate is a serious threat. And black finds a couple of spite checks, but white runs out of danger real quickly, and there's really no defense for black here, even though it looks like his attack is doing okay. There's no stopping queen d8 mate unless you give up a lot of material. You know, rook d6, well, that just allows a check. Boom. And, you know, you're two rooks down, and and the king is very exposed. He can't be long for this. So let's back it up to let's see, to this point. And let's just, for the fun of it, try bishop c4. Okay. Now white can still play f4. Black could still play rook h5. Or, let's see, rook here might be risky, but might not. Queen could give itself up for 2 rooks. Take here and then take here, but the white king is a little precarious. I don't know. This move is probably safe and sound. Let's just analyze it and see what happens. Now white probably needs to play bishop c4 to stop rook a2. Does black have time to collect this pawn? Very likely he does. I'm just analyzing. I'm just playing moves. Let's see. White has 5 pawns. So does black. Here comes a threatening a pair of pawns, but black's getting an active game here. That makes white come back. And let's see. Here's a check. Okay, looks like black's going to come out of this okay. This is just analysis. It doesn't mean it's the best line. This is how you analyze the game. You start looking for active moves that create threats and follow a plan. Here the plan that black had was to get a rook to a2. I don't know if it was good or bad, but if you sit down for 2 or 3 hours with one of these games, that's why you don't want to play too many correspondence games. You can really uncover a lot and play at least 200 or 300 points above your over the board strength. So I'm trying to educate you how to play correspondence chess. This is one of the ways. It was well played on both sides. Black just kind of accidentally fell apart here, and dropped that rook on a8, and the pressure on the back rank was too much. It looked like black was getting counterplay first, but white prevailed. Anyway, we're all caught up. The score is now 210 to 110 for my video lessons group. That means there are 20 games left. Win those, and approximately 15, 16 boards, I'm not sure. And any match our player gets a point and a half or 2. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. 1 point or more, as long as 1 is a win, I will make a video. And so there's still a number of videos that will be made for sure, because our players have won 1 game and are still playing the second, and I don't make the video until both games are concluded. That way it's just easier to keep track of who I have to make for. So there are more videos coming. It's just a matter of time before they appear. Anyway, thanks so much.